Thank you for tuning in Koppen with Comic. I'm Brian Koppen, and we're with Comics, Max, and Nicky. Max and Nicky, how the hell are you?
Doing well. Well, I mean, doing okay, as best as one could in the circumstances.
Yeah, under the circumstances. Thank you guys so much for coming out. And where can people see you do stand-up comedy normally on stage in New York City?
Normally,
where can they find you online?
We do run a monthly show every third
East
Monday
Village.
of the month in the East Village at Under St. Mark's Theater.
Oh, cool.
Called Vintage Basement with Max and Nicky.
Oh, good.
Not sure when this is coming out, but
Well, this will be out tonight or tomorrow, but when is the next show
the
kind
next
of scheduled?
one,
The next one is this Monday,
but
we're not sure if we're canceling it or not.
Okay, so stay tuned.
So far, it's still
going
up.
on.
Still tickets can be bought.
Yeah.
And they
at
find
the-
all that via maxandnicky.com or
maxandnicky.com.
maxandnicky.com. And what kind of comic acts is it? Just you guys, or do you book a bunch of comics? And how are they booked? Who do you look
it's
for?
usually it's hosted by us, and we perform music on it. We open and close the show with music.
Okay.
Non-comedic
Non-comedic music,
Okay.
but the first song is generally sort of a
lighthearted.
kind of
The closing song is
upbeat tune, I guess, to kind of get the energy up. And then
Closing
the
song is usually a little bit more sentimental. And the crux of the show, though, is
stand-up comedy.
We usually have 4 or 5 stand-up comedians in addition to us doing comedy as well.
Right.
So
After the initial song, we'll do about 10 minutes of material. 10 to 13 minutes.
10 into 15 minutes of material. And then
And is that musical comedy or just comedy?
It's just comedy.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
And then you guys are both on stage at that time.
Oh, yeah.
That's
Oh,
right.
good.
And
And so,
then-
how do you guys? I'm getting the interaction right now, but kind of, how are you guys? I mean, with planned material, are you guys kind of timing out what your rhythm is going to be so that you're not talking over each other?
We do
Sure, we rehearse it. We
a
rehearse it
lot
quite a bit,
beforehand, yeah.
like a play almost.
cool.
We treat our act like we're doing theater in a way because
Even though it is stand-up, and we're open to, if something spontaneous happens in the audience, we'll
play off of
try
that.
and play off of that.
But I mean, in general, you can't just decide to go to a different bit in the middle of your act if you want to pull your audience back in. You have to just stick to the plan because we can't communicate on stage.
Yeah.
We don't like to deter from the momentum of the whole set, I guess.
Right.
So if we're like, why don't we try this one? It just seems like there's a whole a lull, and we want to keep it go.
In a sense, our act, we like to call it kind of a neo vaudeville act almost. Like because we do music too, and it's but the comedy itself is kind of more. It is like postmodern vaudeville in a way.
Okay.
It's influenced by Stella, I would say. Do you know Stella? It's Michael Liam Black, David Wayne, and Michael Showalter.
Okay.
The guys who made Wet Hot American Summer.
And Stella was that long-form improvisational technique in Chicago, right?
Oh,
Or was that called?
No,
that's called the Herald.
the Herald. That's the Herald. Yeah.
Stella was just
Stella
the name of
Adler
it.
too.
There's
That's
Stella
right,
Adler,
Stella Adler.
but I mean,
I'm not sure
the Stella people have described as kind of like the Marx Brothers on acid, and so the Marx Brothers are a big influence on us too. So I mean, we're just very
there's a
absurd
sense of,
and silly
absurdity
and stupid,
Okay.
silliness,
and we don't really like to do kind of clever humor.
Well, no, we can be. It can be cleverly made, I guess, cleverly done.
But we generally like to veer toward more visceral kind of comedy stuff that's going to make you laugh like you did when you were a kid,
Like absurdist.
like funny faces almost. Where when you're a baby, you see a funny face and you just die of laughing.
Right.
You don't have to think about why it's funny. You just immediately it's funny, and that's kind of what we do a lot of faces on.
But it has to be cleverly written to figure out what those.
Yeah,
laughs are,
of course, yeah. I mean,
it doesn't have to be though.
Well, no,
it can be.
It should be planned out. Yes,
But in figuring out what's going to make people laugh, as they did when they were a kid.
Exactly, you do have to. I mean, I saw somebody talk about. This is just referring to Wayne's World, even because Wayne's World can be very silly and stupid. But I was reading an article about it, and somebody referred to that as being stupid humor for smart people.
Okay, yeah.
And I like that descriptor, I guess.
Okay.
It's kind of like...
Sure.
Nicky weighs in.
Well,
Max,
I don't know.
I don't know.
I know, but I mean,
I don't. I mean, I'd like to think that our comedy anybody can laugh, even if they're not smart. I mean,
it's funny on different on different levels for different people.
So smart and dumb people can laugh.
Yeah,
perfect.
Like some of our favorite comedians, like they'll be able to take the stupidest joke and make it funny because their delivery is so funny. That's the most important part about it. The most important part
is the delivery.
It doesn't like for me, comedy is 15% material, 85% delivery.
Wow.
You can if you can take the stupidest line and make it funny because of delivery, I know you're a good comedian.
Right. I mean, Zach Galifianakis has a great example of that.
Stupid jokes, but the way he delivers it, he's so committed to the character he's playing on stage, and that commitment is over half the battle. And it's just,
and he plays it fairly deadpan too.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that we don't generally, well, actually, we don't at all laugh at our stuff on stage. We just take it as it's like
as seriously as possible.
Right.
I mean, our favorite comedian is this guy Arj Barker, and
I would say, then we'll get into our real favorite comedian.
Our other favorite comedian is our older brother Brent, but our favorite comedian that we've known for a long time, his name is Arj Barker. He's big in Australia, even though he's from San Francisco.
Okay.
He was on the show Flight of the Conchords, actually. Okay. And he combines the best of both worlds. His stuff is very cleverly written, but in the moment, you're not thinking about how it was written. You're just laughing immediately. It's a gut reaction. But when you think about it after the show, you're like, wow, it's really smart how he took all this and put it all together in the end. But he's so committed on stage, and he kind of does play the sort of almost pretentious idiot kind of character on stage.
Well, no, right.
But he acts out his things. I'm a big proponent for acting out, doing a setup, maybe a punchline, but also acting that out afterward, because I don't want to just hear words on stage. I don't want to hear just see somebody talk on stage. You can get that in your regular life, but I want to see somebody go beyond that. I want to see some action. I want to see spectacle.
It's even just a simple thing. We watched Roy Wood Jr. recently, actually.
Oh, cool.
And he's
actually supposed to be on our show on Monday.
Right.
Nice.
That's right.
You'll see him up close.
Yeah, but we were we just saw him. He was talking about he talked about it. He called it like the ET suit because he was talking about coronavirus, and he was talking about, I mean, the hazmat suits, basically, but he was referring to it as an ET suit, but he didn't just say ET suit. He, did this he did this kind of movement with his arms as if it looked like he was walking with the suit.
Oh, cool.
Even though it was just such a kind of a split-the-second kind of thing.
So that's an example.
But it was an example of him just
people.
acting, showing to people what it is. And it was funnier because of that, actually.
Right.
It wasn't just him saying the ET suit. It was him acting it out. That really made it funny.
Okay. So
even though it was just almost a throwaway thing, it was just funny
even
to see that.
Even if somebody's like a storytelling comedian like Jay Larson really acts out every character in the story he's telling, so it really makes you a lot more engaged in the story.
I will say, though, there are we have some one-liners too in
our
act, and those are it's so short that you
don't want to act it out.
You don't really need to act it out. But I think part of the act out, for us at least, is that we're engaging with each other, I guess. And it's sort of like this, even though we have these one-liners where it's done within the dialogue with each other, I guess. So it's almost like we're telling each other, we're not necessarily even telling a joke, like it's as presenting it as a joke. It's almost like done as a...
Yeah,
I feel like I'm complimenting myself right now. Sorry, I don't want to...
But that's the thing with duo acts in general is, if you're going to be like a duo act, I want to see you have a rapport with each other on stage and not just take turns telling jokes.
Yeah.
I want to see
I have to understand the dynamic, right?
Yeah, you want to see there be a dynamic between the two people on stage.
That's
or
right.
Even if there's three people on stage, you want to see you don't want to just see them standing on stage.
That's
and
right.
taking
I
turns.
guess the final word on it is that it doesn't.
There should be a dialogue.
It doesn't necessarily need to be an act out. It's just more. Are you going to do something extra besides just the joke on stage? And actually, a good example was the two twins, Sklar Brothers. They even just did a set on Conan, actually, and it's so synchronized how they perform.
It's
very well rehearsed, and they're not necessarily acting stuff out, but there is an element of theatrics going on.
Yeah, there's
because
got to be, right? You guys have the opportunity to add another layer in the dynamism of your relationship.
That's right.
Like if I come away understanding your relationship, and it's like a sitcom, and that's what we're talking about today. It's just like because we know your relationship, certain things are so much funnier. Or you can say less, and I'll be like, I think that's funny because Max and Nicky interact in this way. You don't have to say as much. But what are some of the sitcoms that you guys found funny back in the, we like Seinfeld, or at least I like Seinfeld. Like,
Seinfeld's my favorite show of all time.
And that's a big influence.
That's a big.
Too.
I would actually say even the later seasons, like 7 through 9.
Oh, they were the better ones, in my opinion. Right?
Those were the biggest influence on us
right,
because they became so absurd and silly, and they didn't even didn't even make sense at a certain point. And like,
it's like
when Kramer he has to like deliver or drop off those muffin tops at a dump, and
but they wouldn't accept
none of the places
because they're like, where are the
muffin tops? And it's so absurd.
So
like,
ridiculous.
why would a dump not accept these?
I love that.
But
we can't take those. Where's the muffin bottom?
Right. Exactly, and just the idea of that kind of humor really had a big influence on us. That things that just are so silly and just don't make sense.
Right. It's almost like
it's funny because
it's going with taking seriously on stage the absurdity of the situation, and that makes it even more absurd that you're acting like this is a real thing in real life,
And that makes a lot of sense because we understand Kramer so much, but also like the relationship between like a Jerry and a Newman.
Sure,
because we know their relationship is just like you guys' relationship on stage.
Right.
Certain things will be funny because I know your background.
Right, and they got, all of the Kramer was always sort of the absurd character, but they all got even more absurd later on. Jerry too.
Even that same episode with the muffin tops, where
Jerry's
shaving his chest hair, and at the end he's like, his hair's growing back, and he becomes like a werewolf, and he has to run into the forest, and it's like just the idea of him and howling at the moon.
Yes,
it's just. That episode is a classic episode for sure.
And I think it was, to me, if you like that humor, it's kind of addition by subtraction when Larry David left. Because early on, they tried to do very angsty George, and later on, George could be absurdist too, like when he was trying to eat a sandwich while he was watching TV, while he was having sex.
Right, that's right.
That wouldn't have happened in an earlier season.
Sure.
Right. Well, I think,
but even in the middle of the show, when Larry David was still on, where George eats the thing out of the garbage can because
the eclair because it's not
touching anything. It's a very Larry David kind of moment, and I know that actually I think that happened to him in real life, but it's that the idea of just thinking about it like, well, this is clean still, It didn't touch anything, That's really funny, but I guess it would, even after Larry David left, it would really become really absurd.
I think a lot of people say Larry David really laid the foundation for people to like go, let's even take this to the umpteenth degree. I think maybe is and if you look at Curb Enthusiasm, it gets really absurd too. I think now,
but I guess he left before. I don't know. Maybe they had the writers with the chops to make it, to actually take it to the nth degree.
Yeah,
like earlier on, they were talking about the location of somebody's button. That button on your shirt is too high. And
that's right.
That's not fucking funny.
That's the first episode.
Yeah, that's not funny compared to some of the later stuff.
Sure. But I will say, actually, before Larry David, I would even say that sixth season started to really push it as far as absurdity goes.
When did he leave?
The soup.
He left after the seventh season.
Oh, really?
So he wasn't there for 8 and 9.
Really?
Because I know he was there for the Soup Nazi, which is a really absurd idea too.
Yeah.
Or just even like the George Steinbrenner character is really ridiculous,
It's
and Larry David
voice,
voiced
right.
But we are talking a lot about Seinfeld. There are other sitcoms that we love.
Frasier is one of our favorites.
One of our top
and I think
5.
that's even. It's just.
That's a show that's so almost different from the kind of thing that we do on stage. I would say
not true,
not
actually.
The
relationship between Frasier and Niles is really.
It actually is
can
similar.
Get so. They are so highfalutin and
pretentious,
smarmy, and that they are kind of absurd.
I guess that is. I guess we could be like that. Also, they did a good amount of slapstick on that show, especially with the Niles character. And
it gets totally absurd.
And we do, I guess, a good amount of slapstick on stage. And
they do get really absurd in episodes. Actually, they do a lot of sort of almost their odes to a comedy of errors and sort of.
But what I mean is the there's certain writing in Frasier that is so good that I'm like, I'm not capable of writing like this. It's that good where you're like, man, how do they know all that stuff to be able to write this kind of material? You know?
Right.
I mean, but that show is really good because it's staged like a play.
There's no music.
All the actors.
There's no
come
music
from
except for the very beginning and the end, and I like that. Even though that's
what you guys do.
Yeah, exactly. No, I mean we are very much. I mean, I majored in music in college, and we're very much. I love music, but. We don't like overuse. We don't like overuse
in any media.
In any medium,
that's cool. So you just keep it to the beginning and the end.
Exactly. That's why there's a lot of shows.
We don't like.
There's a lot of single camera comedy shows that come out today that have potential to be so much better, but they overwhelm it with a bunch of music, cheesy music that makes it saccharine and sappy and cheesy and things that
like
normally would be funny.
Telling the audience member how to feel in a way.
It's like this music that's
the actor's doing a great job themselves of delivering this.
They'll do things like the music will be like and it's like why are you doing that kind of music right now?
Right.
You don't need that for this to be funny,
And so, I mean, going back to the whole Frasier being well written and things, like, I'd be interested, and you talked about the relationship between Frasier and the other characters, like, I'd be interested to figure out, like, how do you guys write it? Do you guys write it with any kind of, is it rooted in how you guys are in actual life? Like, what personas did you adopt, and were those personas based on reality?
That's a good question.
The personas we have on stage are, I guess, more or less kind of like...
A version of ourselves.
I guess a little bit more of a theatrical version of ourselves, I guess.
Heightened version.
But I will say the situations we create for ourselves... I mean, just wouldn't happen. I mean,
the things that we do on stage are so ridiculous that they wouldn't happen in real life. I mean, it depends on the situation,
right? I guess, but really, for the most part,
the rapport
on stage,
though is
right. The rapport, I'd say, is fairly real, but I'd say. I mean, what we're talking about on stage wouldn't apply in any real life.
It depends on the bit, I guess.
Yeah, it depends on the bit, but
because you guys are taking it to the umpteenth degree.
Well, it's not even. I guess if you want to say that, but it's also they're not even. It's almost like, it'll be like us. I'll tell Nicky or I'll ask the audience as an example of one thing. Is I'll ask the audience if they've liked the movie Scream, and Nicky will turn around. Doing a face,
I'll make
like
the face
the killer of Scream,
the Scream mask,
right? The Scream mask, but
it goes even further than
there's
that.
There's no application to reality.
And then after I do that, Max gets scared, and he's like, "Stop it! You're scaring me!" And I take away the face. And
I don't want to ruin the whole bit. But
I know, but in
there's
the
references. There's references to that.
There's
a reference to Thriller in there, and it's almost like this whole bit is hinging on a reference to pop culture.
I guess that when it comes down to it, is our comedy is it's postmodern because we reference a lot of things from, especially the 80s.
Not especially, but from
from any time period. Actually, from even like the 40s and 50s. But we reference things but a lot of times without referencing anything at all, but it's sort of like it's postmodern that you're like that we're referencing something, but you just don't know what it is.
Well, no, in that situation you do.
In that situation you do. We are referencing the movie Scream and the song and music video to Thriller, but
I do like the idea that one of you would be scared and one of you would be doing the scaring.
Right.
And you would have to choose which one of you is typically the guy fooling around and which of the other one
right.
takes things too seriously.
And the thing about that is what's so absurd is just a moment before when we were doing the previous bit, I'm on stage with him the whole time and I just turned around and made the face and it's like, oh, he's scared of me. The face, and he doesn't realize it's me, even though I was on the stage the whole time, right? I mean, that's...
I guess, really, who becomes the scared one is... I mean, he was able to do the face, so I'm like, okay, I'll be the quote-unquote straight man.
Well, that's the thing, that, people often, or sometimes people ask, oh, who's the straight man in this act? And we trade off. Whoever can do a certain character,
or whoever kind of came up with the bit.
Whoever
in the
came up
first
with the
place.
bit, the opposite person plays the straight man, so to speak.
Right.
I mean, sometimes we both play the
Right.
non-straight man.
It'll be one person will be
I
the
guess.
straight man at first, and then that person actually also becomes the fool as well. I
So
guess.
the joke's on both of you.
Yeah.
Like, give an incentive to create the bit because then the other guy's got to be the straight man.
Right.
That's right. Yeah.
But, and that's what they can look forward to, and they're going to find Max and Nicky across all social platforms. You guys are maxandnicky.com.
Yes.
Okay. And they can check when whether or not the money show is coming out. But at the Under St. Mark's.
Under St. Mark's.
But it's regularly there every month.
It's regular there
every third
Monday
Monday
of the
of the
month.
Okay.
Yeah.
And they can find they can stay tuned with show dates at maxandnicky.com.
Sure.
Okay. Max and Nicky, thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.